Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be talking about the Powerplant's reciprocating engine questions, specifically reciprocating engines. It's going to be 108 questions. It's going to be a very long video. I hope you have the patience for this. Increased water vapor, higher relative humidity in the incoming air to a reciprocating engine will normally result in which of the following? Decreased engine power at constant RPM and manifold pressure. When cleaning aluminum and magnesium engine parts, it is inadvisable to soak them in solutions containing soap because some of the soap will become impregnated in the surface of the material and subsequently cause engine oil contamination and foaming. One cause of after firing in an aircraft engine is an excessively rich mixture. If an engine cylinder is to be removed, at what position in the cylinder should the piston be? Top, dead center. Which of the following is most likely to occur if an overhead valve engine is operated with inadequate valve clearances? The valve will not seat positively during start and engine warm-up. During routine inspections of a reciprocating engine, a deposit of small, bright, metallic particles which do not cling to the magnetic drain plug is discovered in the oil sump and on the surface of the oil filter. This condition may be the result of abnormal plane type bearing wear and is cause for further investigation. How is proper end gap clearance on new piston rings assured during overhaul of an engine? By replacing the rings in a cylinder and measuring the gap with a feeler gauge. Before attempting to start a radial engine that has been shut down for more than 30 minutes, turn the propeller by hand 3 to 4 revolutions in the normal direction of rotation to check for liquid lock. Which of the following statement is true? Pre-ignition is caused by incandescent objects in the cylinder. Which of the following will be caused by excessive valve clearance of a cylinder on a reciprocating engine? Reduced valve overlap period. Some aircraft engine manufacturers equip their product with choked or taper ground cylinders in order to provide a straight cylinder bore at operating temperatures. What tool is generally used to measure the crankshaft rotation in degrees? A timing disc. If an engine with a stroke of 6 inches is operated at 2000 RPM, the piston movement within the cylinder will be at maximum velocity 90 degrees after top dead center. Which of the following is a characteristic of a thrust bearing used in most radial engines? Deep groove ball. When will small induction system air leaks have the most noticeable effect on engine operation? At low RPM. Cam ground pistons are installed in some aircraft engines to provide a better fit at operating temperatures. As the pressure is applied during reciprocating engine compression check using a differential pressure tester, what would a movement of the propeller in the direction of the engine rotation indicate? The piston was positioned past top dead center. The 5 events of a 4-stroke cycle engine in the order of their occurrence are intake, compression, ignition, power, and exhaust. At what speed must a crankshaft turn if each cylinder of a 4-stroke cycle engine is to be fired 200 times a minute? 400 RPM. By use of a differential pressure compression tester, it is determined that cylinder 3 of a 9-cylinder radial engine will not hold pressure after the crankshaft has been rotated 260 degrees from top dead center compression stroke cylinder 1. How can this indication usually be interpreted? Normal indication. What special procedure must be followed when adjusting the valve of an engine equipped with a floating cam ring? Eliminate cam bearing clearance when making valve adjustments. If an engine operates with a low oil pressure and a high oil temperature, the problem may be caused by a leaking oil dilution valve. The operating temperature valve clearance of a radial engine as compared to cold valve clearance is greater. A characteristic of a dynafocal engine mounts as applied to aircraft reciprocating engines is that the shock mounts point toward the engine's center of gravity. If the oil pressure of a cold engine is higher than at normal operating temperature, the engine's lubrication system is probably operating normally. Engine crankshaft runout is usually checked during engine overhaul and after a prop strike or sudden engine stoppage. Excessive valve clearance results in the valve opening late and closing early. When does valve overlap occur in the operation of an aircraft reciprocating engine? At the end of the exhaust stroke and the beginning of the intake stroke. Why does the smoothness of operation of an engine increase with greater number of cylinders? The power impulses are spaced closer together. Which part of the cylinders walls of a normally operating engine will the greatest amount of wear occur? Near the top of the cylinder. During overhaul, reciprocating engine exhaust valves are checked for stretch with a contour or radius gauge. If the crankshaft runout readings on the dial indicator are plus 0.002 inch and minus 0.003 inch, the runout is 0.005 inch. Which of the following engine servicing operations generally requires engine pre-oiling prior to starting the engine? Engine installation. Which of the following conditions would most likely lead to detonation? Use of fuel with too low an octane rating. The primary purpose in setting proper valve timing and overlap is to obtain the best volumetric efficiency and lower cylinder operating temperatures. Backfiring through the carburetor generally results from the use of an excessively lean mixture. What is the basic operational sequence for reducing the power output of an engine equipped with a constant speed propeller? Reduce the manifold pressure, then the RPM. Reduced air density at high altitude has a decided effect on carburation, resulting in a reduction of engine power by excessively enriching the fuel-air mixture. After spark plugs from an opposed engine have been serviced, in what position should they be reinstalled? Next in firing order to the one from which they were removed and swapped bottom to top. Valve overlap is defined as the number of degrees of crankshaft travel during which both valves are off their seats. Grinding the valves of a reciprocating engine to a feather edge is likely to result in pre-ignition and burned valves. What is required by 14 CFR Part 43 Appendix D when performing an annual 100-hour inspection on a reciprocating engine aircraft? Cylinder compression check. Standard aircraft cylinder oversizes usually range from 0.010 inch to 0.030 inch. Oversize on automobile engine cylinders may range up to 0.100 inch. This is because aircraft engine cylinders have relatively thin walls and may be nitrided. Which of the following statements is true? Cast iron piston rings may be used in chrome-plated cylinders. During the inspection of an engine control system in which push-pull control rods are used, the threaded rod ends should be checked for the amount of thread engagement by means of the inspection holes. When is the air-fuel mixture ignited in a conventional reciprocating engine? Shortly before the piston reaches the top of the compression stroke. Which of the following would most likely cause a reciprocating engine to backfire through the induction system at low RPM operation? Lean mixture. An engine misses in both the right and left positions of the magneto switch. The quickest method for locating the trouble is to check for one or more cooled cylinders. A 9-cylinder engine with a bore of 5.5 inches and a stroke of 6 inches will have a total piston displacement of 1,283 cubic inches. How many of the following are factors in establishing the maximum compression ratio limitations of an aircraft engine? Detonation characteristics of the fuel, design limitations, the engine, and the degree of supercharging. Some cylinder barrels are hardened by nitriding. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but which type of bearings are generally used for connecting rods and camshafts? Plain. If the ignition switch is moved from both to either left or right during an engine ground check, normal operation is usually indicated by a slight drop in torque meter pressure indication. Which statement is true regarding bearings used in high-powered reciprocating aircraft engines? There is less rolling friction when ball bearings are used than when roller bearings are employed. Using the following information, determine how many degrees the crankshaft will rotate with both intake and exhaust valves seated. Intake opens 15 degrees before top dead centers. Exhaust opens 70 degrees before bottom dead center. Intake closes 45 degrees after bottom dead center. Exhaust closes 10 degrees at top dead center. After top dead center. This question is tricky because you need to know the math. It's definitely not going to be just like how it's written down. You need to learn the math for this one. What is an advantage of using metallic sodium-filled exhaust valves in aircraft reciprocating engines? Reduced valve operating temperatures. If the intake valve is open too early in the cycle of operation of a 4-stroke cylinder engine, it may result in backfiring into the induction system. Excessive valve clearance in a piston engine decreases valve overlap. The volume of a cylinder equals 70 cubic inches when the piston is at bottom center. When a piston is at top of the cylinder, the volume equals 10 cubic inches. What is the compression ratio? 7:1. Engine operating